Right? All right, gentlemen. Oh, okay. Pashas Yisro. Who was Yisro? What? Right.
Priest of Midian.
Priest of Midian. Right. And that's how he is mentioned in this Pasha. Right? Hey Midian. And the Pasha that is named for Yisro is, you could say, in human terms, is the central Pasha of the whole Torah. Right? Matan Torah. Of course, in the Torah we don't make any distinctions, because the whole Torah is equally from Hashem, and the Rambam says that Onoichi Hashem Elokecha, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, and V'simna Hoeshet Legish, that they're talking about the Bnei Yisrael of equal kedusha. And if there is some misspelling in V'simna Hoeshet Legish, the Torah is possible equally as if it were in Shema Yisrael Onoichi Hashem Elokecha. Makes no difference. But nevertheless, from our perspective, there's much more that we learn from Onoichi Hashem Elokecha and from Shema Yisrael, and this is the central teaching in the Torah, and this is in the Pasha called Yisro, which is a little bit amazing. At best, Yisro was a ger, was a Kohen Midian, and after he met up with Moshe and he came to the Midbar and he heard all of the Nishim and all the floors, there are, so to speak, positive things said about the Yisro even from before this Bet Moshe. Just quickly, just want to mention to you that it says in the Medrash that there were 3 people that were consulted when Paro gave out the Gzeira, the decree against the Jewish people that they should be drowned, their children should be drowned, or that they should be subjugated into slavery. It was Paro, Yisro, and Bilam.
He's Paro, but I think it's Yoav.
Yoav. Right. Yoav was another consultant. And Paro was consulted these 3. Yoav, Yisro, and Bilam. Yeah. So the other 3 had different reactions to this. The only one who objected was Yisro. As a result of that, he was banished. So Yisro was originally on that plan, and then afterwards he reneged and he said no. And so, in other words, there is something positive to be said about Yisro even before, but still, he was a Kohen Midian, and he was an Oved Avodah Zarah. As the Torah says that he knew all Avodah Zarah, he knew all different Avodah Zarah. Rashi brings it down. There was not a single. After he died, he says in the Pasha, because he knew all the Avodah Zarah. He was so proficient in Avodah Zarah. He knew every different Avodah Zarah, how you serve it, about its philosophies, and so on. The Rebbe explains in the Sikha that actually, in those days, that actually meant that he was a very great scholar. Because in Avodah Zarah, as the Rambam describes it, actually started from a philosophical error. Essentially, the error was, as the Rambam describes it, that since Hashem created the world, and in the world He created different stages. He created that level of creatures that are bestowing power on others, like the sun, the moon, the stars, and so forth. And then there is the recipient, the earth. So therefore, they said that those creatures that are instrumental in giving strength, they are of a higher standard, of a higher status. They're like the ministers in a king's palace, and therefore they have to be recognized as such, and they have to be respected as such. And then eventually it went from recognition to respect to worship, and that's how it developed Avodah Zarah. But they actually studied and they knew the various powers of the various stars and all that, like the Sagnine Yom in Russia several times, the Sagnine Pare, that they were able to predict various things through their stargazers. They were very proficient in those things. So therefore, Yisro, he was very proficient. He was a very great scholar. He knew all of these natural forces. But he followed along with the error, the initial error of how to relate to them. And the error is a very subtle error. They are indeed in that position. They do indeed. They are used as the conduit to bring all the powers into the world, but they don't have any say on their own. They have absolutely no personal presence. Therefore, to recognize them and to give them honor and to worship them is totally out of place. And that was the error. So, but nevertheless, Yisro was in this error, wasn't able to be Zorah. And when he recognized Hashem, he said, "No, Hashem is greater than all other gods." So this is quite a recognition. From our perspective, this is not significant. But Yisro, this was a great significance. But eventually, Yisro became Taki Ager, and he accepted Torah, accepted mitzvahs. And the Zohar says a very phenomenal thing. That without Yisro coming to and joining the Matan Torah could not take place. So he was, the Zohar says that. What? Matan Torah could not take place. So, based on the Rebbe's Sichos and all that, what in fact is the significance of Yisro's presence by Matan Torah to such an extent? In explaining this whole phenomenon of Matan Torah and the significance of Yisro's presence and all that, we have to go just for a moment and examine the whole principle of Matan Torah, which we discussed many times. Matan Torah was not something, the idea from Torah was not something totally novel. You all know that they always learn Torah. Shem Ba'over had yeshivas that taught Torah. All they always learn Torah. Shevet Levi continued to learn Torah even in Mitzrayim. And this is why they were not subject to slavery. Because they were in yeshiva. They continued to learn. They were not subject to slavery. So what was the novelty of Torah? That Hashem gave Torah. In general, which you already mentioned, novelty of Torah and Hashem giving Torah meant that now in Torah is contained a power, a capability, an effect as a result of Torah that has the godly power. Prior to that, it was a human concept. Human beings, because of their wisdom, their profound insight, knew what is the proper way to behave in this world according to recognizing that this is God's world. They're able to understand all mitzvahs. It says Avraham Avinu was makayim all the mitzvahs on his own. In other words, he was able to understand that according to the godly truth, this is what he's supposed to do. But this will still remain only a human quality. They didn't have the power to transform the world. By Matan Torah, the mitzvahs were given directly by Hashem, and hence, when you do a mitzvah, as we mentioned one time recently, when you do a mitzvah, it's like Hashem himself is doing it. And therefore the power of the mitzvah is that it actually penetrates the entire mitzvahs of the world. As for example, it says in the Zohar that when Yankov Avinu made those sticks by Lavan, you remember that? The sticks, Machzor Lavan, and they looked like Ritzuas. It looked like Ritzuas on the arm, right? Because it was black and white, black and white, black and white. The Zohar says that this was an element of a Deveda similar to Tefillah that Yankov was doing. So he had kavanah, he had a kavanah of sin. But these sticks did not become holy as a result. After that this avodah was done with, the sticks remained sticks like any other stick. But what you take down, you take a pair of film, you take a Sefer Torah, it's holy. In a Sefer Torah, for example, and film also, even the blank parchment, what's called the gilyon. The gilyon, the blank parchment that surrounds the writing, is equally holy. The whole thing. So this was affected as a result of Matan Torah, because Matan Torah brought the godly presence in the mitzvahs into the world. By Matan Torah, also Rashi brings it down, as you will see. By Matan Torah, he says that there was a voice that produced that announced the 10 commandments. And that voice, the Torah says, "V'chol ha'om royim es ha'koilos." The entire nation was able to see the koilos, to see these voices and the lapidim and the flames and the various sounds and all that. So it says that they were able to see the voice. So this is the Gemara, the Machloket between Rishmon and Rabbi Akiva, and ultimately Rashi brings it down in the Chumash that when it says in the Pasuk Roy and Hakoyos, they saw the voices, it means literally they saw the voices. They saw. So how can you see a voice? A voice is not visible. In the expression of the Gemara, and Rashi quotes it, is Royin et hanishma. They see that which is normally heard. Royin et hanishma. The Gemara actually says both sides. They see that which is heard, and they hear that which is seen. Now, with that, huh?
Rashi in the Gemara says both.
No, Rashi doesn't bring down the second part.
Oh, it's the first.
That's it for Royin et hanishma. Royin et haniva. Okay. Now, what is this? What is the significance of this? They see that which is heard. And what is it for? What's the significance? What's wrong with hearing what was heard? Right? There are actually two opinions in the Gemara and the Mishnah. But what's so significant about this? The principle is what is, from our perspective, what is nishma and what is mira. And this we'll try to examine and understand. What do we see? What is visible to us? Naturally visible. The physical world. Anything worldly is visible. That to us, and that's why it's called mira, because it's the reality in which we function. When you talk about godliness, you talk about morals, laws, and all that, right and wrong, good and bad, these are not visible things. These are things that we understand. This is nishma. This is what you can hear. You can talk about it, but you don't see it. Even godliness, you don't see godliness. You understand, you believe, you understand, and so forth. So this is all in the category of nishma. In our experience, this is in the category of nishma. So when it says royin as nishma, that they see that which is heard, means that which is normally only heard, not seen, at Matan Torah, this became so clear, it was visible. They were able to see godliness. How is that occurring? What does it mean that you see godliness? If it's not visible, it's not visible. So, one aspect that I want to discuss with you, the principle of visible, that which is visible, it's not just I'm using my eyes to see it rather than my ears. That which is visible has a different impact on us than that which is heard. And what is the impact? The impact is that which is visible is the reality. Things which you hear, you can also be convinced of it by proofs and by arguments and so forth. You can be convinced, you can believe it, but it's never as powerful as that which you see. That which a person saw, that which he heard, even if he heard all the arguments and he was convinced, you can still come and throw a damper on it. Amora can come and make him doubt it. Is it really so? Was it a circumstantial thing? Doubt is always easy to it's called put a monkey wrench, break the smooth vision. Huh?
Yeah, break the spokes.
Break the spokes, that's right. Break the certainty. Once you break the certainty, so it's no longer the reality. So you do everything with a doubt. This is effectively the power of Amalek. And Amalek came and he was able to break the impact that the Tzias Mitzrayim had on the whole world. As a result of that, the world woke up again and said, okay, no, it's not so terrible. It's not so real. Anything that is just heard, it's possible to throw a damper on. But that which a person saw, there's no way you can convince him otherwise. He saw it. No matter what the arguments are. This is the difference between hearing and seeing. Now, in our physical world, the physicality is something which is nearer. Godliness is something which is distant. At the time of Matan Torah, Yidden were elevated to a much higher spiritual state, and then the union of godliness became at the level of clarity and certainty as vision. This is called Roim as Hanir. We have to try to understand. I want to try to understand, to discuss. Was there a physical world or was there not a physical world? If there was a physical world, so still, physical world is still more real than the spiritual world. Right? It would seem. So, if the physical world is still visible, spiritual world is visible, the physical world is visible naturally. Spiritual world is visible because of some kind of a perspective. So there's no comparison. This is natural. This is the real thing. Right? So that means that when you say that the Eroyim Nishma, it means that in the physical world itself, they were able to see, through the physical world itself, they could be able to see godliness. Physical world did not conceal godliness. On the contrary, it actually revealed godliness. Because in absolute truth, if a person really focuses with his intellect on the physical, on the reality of the physical world, he will see, well, be able to understand, at least in his mind's eye, that the physical world itself is not really that real, because he can take it apart, he can break it and make it. What makes it so real? Only the fact that Hashem makes it. I want to give you an example for this. I'm not going to go very far with this, just to give you an example you should understand that actually godliness is not that far off from our understanding. I think, if I remember correctly, I think we already discussed this perspective one time. We are sitting here on our chairs, and the chairs are standing on the floor. We went through that already, that exercise? Okay. Huh? Makes you think, right? But it's very germane, right? You sit on the floor and you say, oh, the floor, this is a solid base. And I can see it. The floor is supported by beams. I don't see the beams, but I know definitely that there are beams that are supporting the floor. And the beams are supported by the walls of the house. Right? And the walls of the house are sound. The walls of the house are supported by a 6-foot block of cement right deep into the ground. And I have full confidence in that block of cement that it's going to be here forever. Unless you take it away, right?
Good foundation.
Good foundation. Fine. And that is supported by the earth. And the earth, who can argue about the earth? It's a real thing. Okay? Now, we go a step further and say, okay, and who is supporting the earth? Moshe, who is supporting the earth?
Hashem. Gravity?
What the earth.
That's a good question.
So you were so confident. You're sitting here with such calm and confidence. I have a floor, I have a wall, I have a foundation, I have an earth, and then the whole thing goes out the window. What is it? What is all of it supported by? The earth is floating in nothingness. It's floating. Actually, we say this in davening. In Rosh Hashanah and Kippur, we say, Tol Eretz Al Belima. Hashem suspends the earth Al Belima, on nothingness. If we reflect on the broader scale, the reality of the world as we know it, but if we really focus in, we will see that it is really a godly phenomenon. It's not a physical phenomenon. The physical structure goes up to a certain point. So we can build with it, you know. We have the earth, and from then on we can build a whole Empire State Building. But the earth itself is not something that we can explain. It's no longer a natural structure. So by Matan Torah, Eden saw Royin as Hanishma. They saw right through the entire Messiah of the world. And they saw, without any obstructions, that this is really a godly presence. And therefore when Hashem spoke, he was not speaking from some distance. Rashi says that the voice, Hashem's voice was coming from everywhere, not from one direction like one speaks. From the bottom, from the top, from all the sides. From everywhere. Because that was the reality. What is the real reality of existence? Hashem's presence. Not the earth, not the walls, not the foundation. None of that. The real reality of the world is Hashem's presence, which is present equally everywhere. And that's the voice comes from everywhere. This is what took place at Matan Torah. And this is what could not have taken place if not for the presence of Yisro. What is the significance? Why Yisro? This is what we need to understand, and this is how it is going to be, is pertinent for us as well. None of us have Yisro over here. Just a wonderful word on a Maya scale. You heard, and we also speak about it from time to time, you heard of this apostle really, and there are many insights in this apostle. Yisro ha'oir min ha'choshech. Yisro ha'oir min ha'choshech. That the supremacy of oil, the supreme quality of oil, is the supremacy of oil over choshech. That's a possible. And Chassidus puts in a notch, an insight into this, that Yisro oil mitoy hachoshech, that the supremacy of oil, the real supreme quality of oil, becomes evident when it comes from choshech. If one experiences darkness and then he experiences light, that's when he begins to appreciate light in a different way, in a Yisro manner, in a supreme manner. Yisro in ha'oir min ha'choshech is a pasuk, and Chassidus adds this additional insight: Yisro in ha'oir mitoy ha'choshech, from inside the choshech. Choshech is instrumental. Yisro min ha'choshech means oil is greater than choshech. When you compare the two, oil is greater than choshech. Mitoy ha'choshech means that choshech itself is instrumental in bringing out the supremacy of it. Okay. Now, to understand these words, Yisro mitoy ha'choshech, normally, in our experience, what is the state of the world naturally? Dark. The natural state of the world is dark. Okay? And if we should translate that in human terms, in terms of human experience, what would be the most natural state of a person? To relax, take a nap. Sleep is the most relaxing and most pleasant state. He's got nothing to worry about. Any other state than sleep, he is active. There has to be something activating him. There has to be something that motivates him, something that is a demand on him. It's not, so to speak, a plain natural state. Natural state is when you're asleep, in the dark. Light is kind of a disturbance, right? Leave me alone, come on. I'm sleeping, right? Leave me alone. Except that we are not that stupid. You know, yes, sleep is a very comfortable and pleasant thing, but still there are other things that are important to do, and you wake up and you go and do. But it takes an effort. And every 5 minutes we have to redouble the effort. We have to encourage ourselves again. Oh, why? You have to do it. No, you must do it, right? Every half hour. No, continue. Go in. Right? This is like it requires a constant effort, a constant wake-up call. But the natural state is dark. That's the natural state of the world. Even while the sun is shining, as we discussed many times, the sun is shining. The sun doesn't transform the world. It illuminates the world that you can see, even though the world naturally is dark, you can still see. It doesn't change the world in its from its natural state. Okay, that we have clear. So, under normal circumstances, somebody lives a normal path of life. He has the time when he sleeps, times when he wakes up, times when he's just relaxing, times when he's working, when he's doing his things. He's got a proper, so to speak, a normal human compromised type of life, right? He gives a little bit to the Yetzer Hara, a little bit to Yetzer Tov, a little bit to Nefesh Abamis, a little bit to Nefesh Olatis. He's got a proper balance. So even when he's lazy and so, no, he goes on and does his thing. He doesn't feel the necessity. He doesn't feel the necessity to do away with laziness. Get out completely. I'm lazy a little bit. It's all right, I can still do my thing. And if I take a break for a half hour, I'll get back to my work. The work is going to get done. What if somebody's into Avodah Zorah? He loses whole perspective of life. Avodah Zorah. What's Avodah Zorah? Avodah Zorah means that effectively, like we said before, Avodah Zorah started from worshipping the natural forces, which means that you do not have a perspective at all of anything above nature. You're completely contained within the natural forces, and you're worshipping them. You're completely subservient into darkness. Everything is just, one force against the other and so forth. It's interesting. I don't want to go into that. I just want to mention to you an interesting phenomenon. The Greeks, on the one hand, the Greeks are kind of two different worlds of the Greeks. They were the great philosophers of Greece. And as a matter of fact, the great philosophers of Greece, like Socrates, as you know, Vanilla, he was the first one, the greatest of them all. There was Socrates and Plato and Aristotle. He was killed. Why? Because they accused him that he doesn't believe in their gods. It's a whole story of it. Anyway, so there was like two different worlds. There was the great philosophers, and there were the Avodah Zorah. And the Avodah Zorah, it's called Greek mythology. Greek mythology, their perception of the forces in the world, that they were constantly fighting. The sun was fighting with the moon, and this star was fighting with that star, and there's constant war going on between earth and water, and day and night, and all kinds of mythology things. This is what develops in a person's mind when he is subjugated completely to nature. Why should the sun rise up? The darkness resists it. The sun fights its way and comes out. And then the moon fights its way up and pushes the sun away. This is the mentality. So you're laughing, and I'm glad you're laughing, because I want you to understand that the scientific view of the world is not very far from this. Yes. That's not very far from this. How does a scientist view everything? Everything fights for its right to be. Right? Everything fights for its right to be. This is what the natural world is. And you go deeper and deeper into it, and deeper and deeper into darkness. And so when one is really deep into the darkness, then to give him a little bit light, normal light, won't do anything. Because he's completely submerged in darkness. What can bring him out of his darkness? Here is the big point. The Yisro in Hoyer. What is Yisro in Hoyer? Yisro means the supreme element of oil. So we spoke of oil, and oil is really something an add-on. It's just a little bit light onto the dark world. But that is not the real element of oil. Let me explain. First we'll use the simple metaphor of the sun. Now the sun gives light to the earth. The light that the sun brings to the earth is what's called a ha'ora, just a shine of light. And it doesn't transform. The earth remains dark, even with the light shining. Essentially it remains dark. But go back to the sun itself. The sun itself is light through and through. It does not have an element of darkness. And if we were to put it into simple terms, it would be that light to sun is the same as darkness to earth. Right? The natural state of sun is light. It doesn't know that darkness exists. The natural state of earth is dark. It doesn't know that light exists. So just as even in the physical world there is such a thing as a sun, where the natural state of the sun is light. So the sun is moving through space. So that space, the sun is a huge body, millions of miles across. I myself don't remember that. It's a huge body. So the entire space that the sun occupies, while the sun is there, that space is not illuminated like the earth is illuminated. It transforms. It becomes part of the sun, part of light. It becomes light on an essential level.
You mean the space of the sun is now occupied?
Right. The space of the sun is now occupying is not lit up. It is light. Right? It's light through and through. So this exists even in the physical world. If we take this a little bit higher, or maybe significantly higher, we're talking about life, the neshama. Now the neshama, there's a goof and a neshama. The body by itself, the body has no life of its own. The body is a lifeless entity, presence. It lives because there's a neshama in the body. Now the neshama in the body only makes the body live because the neshama, just like the sun shines on the world. The neshama shines into the body. It doesn't make the body a living entity like the neshama itself. It is still body, but it has an element of life. Do you understand that, right? I want to elaborate on this just a bit. The union that the body has life is manifest not just in the fact that the body can move around, or a person can think, a person can understand, can see, and all that. It's manifest on a more significant level, such as that if the body gets damaged, the person gets a blemish, gets a cut in his finger. What happens if a person gets a cut in the finger? Yeah, he puts a Band-Aid on to protect it against infection, forgets about it for 2-3 days, and it vanishes like it was never there. Right? How does it grow back like that? This phenomenon that it goes back is due to the fact that even though that finger was cut, that was the physical element was cut. The spiritual, the neshama element was not cut. Essentially, the life element was not damaged. And this is why the life element that's in the finger directs and forces the physical element to grow back to its normal state. So therefore you see that this mamish has an element of life. In other words, it can recuperate from damage. It has an essential truth. Except, still it's not like the neshama. The neshama cannot be damaged. The body can be damaged. And if chas v'sholom the damage is more severe, then it can even go back anymore. It can go back as long as there is something to work with. But otherwise... So in other words, yes, the neshama gives life to the body, but it does not transform the body into a neshama element. It doesn't give the body an essential life like the neshama. The neshama itself is in different categories. The neshama itself is what's called a living essence. The neshama doesn't know what it means to be damaged, doesn't know what it means to die. The neshama never dies. The whole concept of death is only at the body level, within there is a separation between the neshama and the guf. But the neshama itself doesn't exist. That whole element doesn't exist in the neshama. This is why they say the neshama, after it separates from the body, it goes back to its original state. It goes back to the Gan Eden. Coming back to our discussion. If we wanted to illuminate, to elevate, and to affect with light, with the godliness, someone who is steeped, so to speak, in darkness, to bring light just to illuminate it is impossible. That's not going to do it. What will uplift somebody from a state of complete drowning in darkness? Not light as we know it, like light shining from the sun. This is the element of sun itself. It's the element of the essence of light. This is what's called Yisro in Hoyer. The supreme element of light. The supreme element of light, where we understand that light is a real presence, not just darkness. The real presence is light, not fakir. The real presence is godliness, which is light, and darkness is the absence of light, because godliness is being concealed, and therefore you don't see the truth. But the real truth is godliness. How is this real truth being revealed? When is it? What is instrumental to reveal this real truth? Just like we said before, that the damage in the finger is kind of manifest, reveals the koyach and the presence of life in the person, because it heals a damage. The real force that reveals godliness is when there is a complete darkness. Out of darkness comes when we can counteract complete darkness and elevate it to light. Then you see, then you're revealing the essence of light. From Avodah Zarah to uplift to the point where in other words, being completely submerged into nature and uplift and see godliness. That's a real uplift. That's when you see the essence of light, not just illumination of light, but the essence. I want to discuss this a little more in practical, and then we'll go. A If you come to somebody who is steeped into natural ways, completely, and you tell him, according to godly dictate, godly precept, direction, you're not allowed to steal. It's a godly precept in our Torah, you're not allowed to steal. So he says, of course you can steal. Because if you steal, you're hurting the person. And you're destroying the society. In other words, once you steep into nature, by mentioning a mitzvah, by mentioning just a little bit illumination, it's not going to change his perception at all. On the contrary, he's going to put everything back into a natural perspective. Oh yeah, I agree with that. Oh yeah, I agree with that. Morality, oh yeah, it's goodness, oh yeah, everything is oh yeah, but he does not know shaykhs at all to godliness, the truth. In order to lift someone from a completely natural perspective when he is totally submerged into nature in Avodah Zarah, to the point of Avodah Zarah, uplift him to recognize godliness. You have to have a royim as anishma. You have to be able to. You have to be in godliness in a way that you see godliness in equal way that you saw darkness. And godliness becomes a natural reality rather than world. That can counter it. And this is why by Matan Torah there was the senior that said, Royin as Anishma. That we normally only can hear, which means it only makes sense. It's a spiritual perspective. Now you see it as clearly as you see normally a physical entity, because you see through the physical entity itself, you see the reality, the godly reality. And this is why Yisro was necessary, was instrumental in bringing it out, because due to Yisro's steeped in the level that he was, and then he had to counter that he was into his Kohen medium, and then to transform that to become an Evet Hashem. That is where was required this is what brought out the deepest element of godliness. Godliness in a way that becomes as real like you see it, not that you understand it. Okay, do we follow? Yeah.
But what would be a practical way to, for somebody that's really immersed in like the
now we want to bring it back to us. Okay, it's a long introduction, but the real message is now, right? I heard somebody once say there's a Tanakh called Kehelis. You heard Kehelis, ecclesiastica, and they translate it. Kehelis. And Kehelis, the whole Tanakh Kehelis speaks about various worldly experiences. All kinds of questions, all kinds of things. And then, at the very end, it says, Soif Dover, everybody knows this posik, Soif HaKol Nishma, V'Zolakimi Robes Mitzvei Sashmek, Yizek Kol HaOdom. And everybody knows this posik, you say it every day in benching. Soif Dover means the bottom line, the end of its whole discussion is that you should feel God and listen to His commands. Yizek Kol HaOdom, this is what man is all about. Someone once gave a lecture on Kehelis, and then he said, you know something? The entire book of Kehelis is an introduction. And what is it introduction to? To this last verse. Save Dora Nishma.
So, pretty long introduction.
A long introduction, but it helps you to understand this last verse. So this entire discussion is introduction to the last few minutes that we are going to talk about ourselves. This is something which is mentioned from time to time, but now that it's the week of Matan Torah, and this is exactly what I've heard of Matan Torah, it is important to reflect when it comes back to the week of Matan Torah, that Matan Torah is actually meant, Matan Torah has the power to transform that which obstructs godliness, that which obstructs Torah. And ultimately, now this is going to be a little bit of a shocker. Ultimately, we are capable and we have the means to understand Torah better as a result of the fact that we have a difficulty in understanding it. Because the difficulty that we have in understanding it is due to some kind of a worldly obstruction, because we think differently, we think in a worldly way. And when with Hashem's help, we break through that, and we understand, but how Torah looks at things, then it's a completely different light. And it's a completely different light. Where Torah becomes a fundamental reality, countering the reality of world as we have seen before. So that the challenges that we are facing, the challenges that we have from our worldly orientation, a natural view of things, if we pursue our path and pursue our goal and insist that we have to break through and understand, this is actually becomes instrumental, and this actually serves to enable us to understand that which we would otherwise not be able to understand. It would be remote from us. To understand the truth of Torah in a fundamental and simple manner, just like you understand physicality, is only possible because we are in the physical world and because we have this obstruction. Otherwise it would be just a concept. Oh, it's a nice idea. To take an example, and I'm over my time, but just quickly, we spoke about this a couple of times. I think it's very, very revealing. Stealing and robbery. Lo sigzo, which is in today's parsha, lo sigzo, we should not rob. Gzela means by force. An armed robbery is called gzela. Or breaking into your house in your face and taking your things, that's gzela. Or coming up to you in the street and grabbing you and mugging you and taking your things away, that's gzela. Geneva is when you come to the person's, you know, unobtrusively and you in stealth. There were those experts in Kanovin, I know in Russia, that's right on, they could cut your back pocket and take your wallet out without you being, without you sensing it. And then all of a sudden, the wallet is not there. It really, totally, you didn't even know when it happened. Okay? That's called Gneva. Or coming into your house, like the Torah speaks about somebody digging under your house, going through a tunnel, and So that's Gneva. Or Gneva is watching your house, taking, marking when you're not home, and when you know for sure, you, over a period of time, this time you're not home, so you go and breaks in, takes your things, and you come home, and your house was ransacked. That's Gneva. So we discussed it recently, I think. I remember. Right, remember? I think you were the one who gave me the answer that I didn't want to hear. What's a greater crime? Right? By worldly standards, what's a greater crime?
The mugger.
The mugger, of course. A mugger will be much more severely punished in a civil court than a thief. And yet, amazingly enough, in the Torah, a Gazlan is treated with much more understanding and deference than a gun. It's an amazing thing. And even to the extent that a gunner has to pay double. He has a fee, he has a fine. And a Gazlan, the maximum he has to pay is what he took. And on top of that, the Chacham say that when a Gazlan comes and he wants to pay you for the object, not return, if he has the object itself, he has to take it. But if he doesn't have the object, he wants to pay you its value, its worth, you should forgive him. Why? In order to encourage him to do tshuva. And someone who accepts the payment, the Chacham are not pleased with him. That's the expression you want. Chacham not pleased with him. What's going on? Mamish, we can contrast two views, a world view and a Torah view. And the more we understand the world view, the more shiny the Torah view comes out. Because, first it doesn't make any sense. When you're thinking to it, you realize what the Torah view is. The Torah view is that the great offense of crime in the world, the significance of crime in the world is not within the context of the world itself. The significance of crime in the world is it's crime against the creator of the world. That's where it all has significance, real significance. It is the insult to garments, to the godly presence. Because the Torah is teaching us and is training us to live at that perspective, at that level, to recognize that what is the reality that you're living with is the godly presence, not the world. This is what gives things their meaning. The godly presence, that's what makes things meaningful. And thereby, as a result of this contrast, you could see, the Gazlan, he offended the human being. The Garnet, he offended God himself. And therefore, we don't forgive him that easily. Gazlan, he offended you. Come on, be a nice guy. Don't, you already had the loss. You already counted it off, right? You already wrote it off. Forget about it. Forget about it. You know the story You don't know, I'm going quickly. It's a story that has 3 stories in it. I'm just going to give you one part of the story. You may have heard it. And very, very briefly, there was this man who he went away. He was in a very difficult financial situation. Real, desperate. And he saw that he's never going to be able to recoup if he stays in this town. He has to go and do some commerce somewhere, some business house. He wanted to leave, and how is he going to leave? He has a wife and kids. So he came to his wife, looking to this, and he said to his wife, I was employed by this business. It was a huge business in town. I was employed by this business, and they're sending me out of town. So I'm going away out of town. And every Friday, you go to the office, and you ask for my check. She was very happy. Yisro today. Right? We're going to have peace in the meantime. Anyway, so he went. And come Friday, she goes to the office, and she says, I'm Mrs. So-and-so, and I came to collect my husband's check. The guy looks up in the books. I don't know. The husband is not registered as an employee over here. So she says, what do you mean? Yeah, sorry. You mean my husband's not a liar? No, and she makes a whole ruckus. What do you mean you're not going to give my husband his check? So this was the secretary of the area. In the meantime, the proprietor of the business was sitting in the inner office and was hearing some kind of an argument, a loud argument. So he came out and says, what is this about? And the secretary says, this lady says that this man was employed here, and he was sent away, and she came to collect his check, and he is not on the employee book. So the man said, yeah, she's right. I employed him myself directly. I forgot to put it into the book. Give him the check. So he told them on it. So every week he went and got the check. Okay? Good. After whatever period of time, the man came back, and as a matter of fact, the Rebbe blessed him, and he was successful. He came home, he was afraid to enter the house. What's going to be over here? He comes in, everything is normal, and she greets him, oh, welcome back. What happened? Well, exactly what you said, it happened, and gave me the check every week. He was completely taken aback. He runs to the office of the year, and he says, I really appreciate what you did, but I want to pay you every last penny. I want to pay it out, Baruch Hashem. And the guy says, I don't know what you're talking about. I gave you. So finally, again, the proprietor hears this argument. And he comes out and he says, what's going on? Listen, you were a nice guy, but I want to pay you. I'm not taking this. Says, you owe me nothing. Actually, I confused this story. The story was, he borrowed money and he said, it's a different story. It's something similar. He borrowed money and he said, but who is going to guarantee the loan? And he says, God is going to guarantee the loan. So they came back and he wants to pay for the loan. The man says to him, your guarantor had already paid me. Okay? So, this is the shot. You had the loss, and God doesn't. He wants to repent. Let him repent. Right? you already wrote it off. You run over it, and it's not hurting you. What do you take on? You have to take on the when there is an offense against God. That's the real thing. That's the real thing. This is how Torah teaches us. This is the shot. You see light in contrast to darkness. Okay. So, again, I always take my welcome over here. Just recognize that this is what we're trying to do here. To understand the real light, Chassidus, which is understood in contrast to the darkness of the world. And then you live not just with a little shine of light, but with the essence, with the emunah, with the essence of the neshama. And nothing can shake that. You become immune to damage. Not like you can be damaged and healed, but become immune to damage. That's what.